Alex, I'm really excited to catch up with you here on day 4 of Mobile World Congress, and I think the idea generally here is to look at the key takeaways from the show, and as you and I were chatting, it's a little bit difficult for me to put my finger on it because there's just so much here to discuss, but I'd love to get some perspective from you on what's jumped out at.
Well, first of all, welcome to the show. It's really good to have you here. I mean, some of the key topics aren't entirely new, but you'd expect to see AI with everything. And we do. We had pretty good contingent in the conference. You know, Arthur Mensch and Ray Kurzweil. And I find it interesting that Arthur Mensch was telling European industry to have a strong sort of local AI base and invest in data centers and stuff like that. You've been on the floor. Everything's got AI, whether it needs it or not. So yeah, I mean, it's practically everywhere. I think for me, the interesting part is that we're starting to see a wave of reality kick in as well. So last year, according to our GSMA intelligence unit, we did see a 4-fold increase in the number of Gen AI applications launched. But I think people understand much better now what you can and can't do with it. In some cases, it's basically just a really good user interface. Yep. And other forms of AI are better for solving other tasks. The other thing I do think is happening is we're moving away from simple automation to more innovation. I mean, what we all want to see is new revenue streams being created. We're seeing a lot of enablement, operators doing GPU as a service, AI factories, that sort of stuff. So I think it's going in a healthy direction.
Yeah, I guess what I noticed in a lot of my discussion with the operators is, shift from kind of hype cycle around what could happen versus, a little more narrow focus on what is practical to my organization. But then we get into that cycle where AI is a replacement, so a point solution, but the real value is created when you can build a system, right? So I'm just kind of curious to get some context from you based on your engagements with your operator membership. How do they see this sort of development from AI as point to AI as system?
Yeah, I mean, we use the same terminology as everybody else, right? Sort of AI for telco is just using AI technology as the plumbing, changing every part of your business. I mean, it's complicated if you've got a ton of legacy systems. Trying to roll AI at scale is challenging. But then the bit we're really interested in is the telco for AI. How can we be a part of providing, the best environment for future AI workloads? As I mentioned, we're starting small. GPU as a service is a nice enabler, and it's good for small businesses and enterprises. And that's what the AI factories are for as well, to help kind of industrialize applications for SMEs. So it's not necessarily in the telco domain, we're just using telco assets.
Yeah, with the GPU as a service, I mean, it's an interesting technology problem, but it's also kind of an interesting business problem, because you can go invest and maybe reinvigorate your edge computing strategy, but then can your sales organization go make the case to their enterprise customers?
Yeah, and that's always the challenge because we have all these ideas. It doesn't necessarily mean that operators are yet very good at selling them, and that's understandable. It's a new business, I suppose.
So 2 years in on Open Gateway, to abruptly shift topics, but give us a bit of an update.
Well, we started off trying to get enough supply, if you like, getting enough operators to actually implement the APIs so we could garner interest from the other side of the hill. We've had more than 72, I think it is, operator groups have signed up. That's 284 networks covered, about 85% of the population of the Earth, but that's the commitment. In terms of implementation, we've had about 52 launches so far. We've also got around 34 channel partners, some of them pretty big. So I think on the supply side, we're doing pretty well. Our gaze now is changing a little bit to what we like to call sort of early future demand generation. So we're talking to other sectors. We call it fusion. We've been talking to automotive, aviation, etc. And instead of just doing the classic telco, build it and they will come with our APIs, we're kind of asking, what do you want? We learned a lesson from the finance industry. We provided some fraud mitigation APIs. They liked them, but they said this would be better. So we came up with a new API called Scam Call, because that's what the banks wanted. And that's how we see the future playing out. If somebody in automotive wants an API to take control of a remote car that's autonomous and got into trouble, then maybe that's something we need to do, rather than us just saying, here, have quality on demand. So I think outside in, listen to your future customers.
Yeah, so you've gotten a lot of buy-in from your telco membership to your fusion point. It's obviously very prudent to reach out to your potential customer base and understand what they need from the technology. But I mean, what's the outlook for material revenue?
Well, again, on the supply side, if you like, we're already seeing revenues because we deliberately targeted the fintech sector. I mean, you know that scams at the moment are off the charts and losses are quite high. So the banks are so willing to pay for additional data points that will help reduce their risk. So that's one where you get money pretty immediately. And I have to say the margin's pretty good. You know, most of it drops to the bottom line. It's not, you know, something that's going to change a telco quarterly report by much, but it's very, very good revenue very early, and that's important. Some of the bigger stuff does require your network to have strong capabilities, things like quality on demand or edge, you know, obviously needs the necessary build out as well, and that'll take a little bit of time. And when we're looking at this future looking stuff, like the fusion, clearly we're just at the beginning of trying to figure out what they want, then we have to figure out how much of it they need, and whether that's enough of a driver to make the telcos actually provide it. So it's too early to tell, really. We've got lots of numbers from McKinsey. I'm not going to say them here because, to be honest, it doesn't really matter. We think it's big. How big it is, that's up to you to make your own decision.
So Alex, we've got 361 days before we reconvene again. What are we going to be talking about next year?
Sadly, I think we're almost certainly going to be talking about AI. I doubt we'll be talking so much about generative because by then it'll be pretty much last year. At the moment, everyone's talking about agents. Seeing how that really plays out is going to be interesting. I'm a huge believer in agentic AI. We haven't talked about NTN yet. Obviously, there's a pretty strong hype around non-terrestrial, but then again, there's some solid stuff that's being done. Now that it is part of the core cellular standards, and you know, we're sitting here surrounded by satellite companies.
Satellite Alley.
Satellite Alley, indeed. So we will see, I think, some more concrete steps there. There's lots of contracts being signed between operators, terrestrial and satellite, and we track that. We have a GSMA intelligence tracker. So that's inevitably going to be part of it as well. Hopefully the API still will, and hopefully, you know, showing some more signs of that early revenue that you're talking about, because that's what's necessary to maintain momentum. If the revenues don't flow, there's the danger it's going to get deprioritized and basically forgotten about. And hopefully we'll see some of the early fusion work take fruit. I mean, at the moment, this week, we've had a definition of requirements that we kind of discussed with the Automotive Edge Compute Consortium, and they published that here. It's kind of like an early manifesto saying, this is the kind of stuff we want. We're looking to do that in other areas as well, but hopefully to get a stronger commitment in terms of, okay, what kind of volumes are we talking? What would it mean if we did this globally? You know, just how much of a pie would there be? So those are some of the things I would hope would be the case, but who knows?
Alex, it's been a fascinating show this year. As usual, well done from GSMA.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. And please come next year.